While we debate the ethics of modern combat sports and violent video games, ancient Romans watched mothers burn alive as entertainment during their lunch breaks. The gap between our civilized world and theirs isn't as wide as you'd like to believe. Most people think gladiator fights were the pinnacle of Roman cruelty. They're wrong. The sword-wielding warriors we see in Hollywood films represent only the surface layer of a system so twisted, so methodically depraved, that it makes modern horror films look like children's fairy tales. What happened in those stone amphitheaters went far beyond competitive combat between trained fighters. It was systematic torture disguised as justice, mass murder marketed as celebration, and psychological warfare waged against entire populations. The truth about Roman arena culture will challenge everything you think you know about human civilization. These weren't primitive barbarians stumbling into violence. They were sophisticated engineers of suffering who turned death into an art form and made millions cheer for more. The year 264 BCE marked a turning point in human entertainment. 3 pairs of enslaved men fought to their deaths in Rome's Forum, not for sport, but to honor a dead nobleman's spirit. This funeral ritual, borrowed from mysterious Etruscan traditions, seemed innocuous enough. The deceased man's sons believed spilled blood would nourish their father's soul in the afterlife. Nobody could have predicted what would grow from this seed. Within a generation, funeral games had mutated into something unrecognizable. Ambitious politicians discovered they could buy public favor with increasingly elaborate death spectacles. What began as private mourning rituals became public entertainment. What started with 3 pairs of fighters escalated to hundreds, then thousands of participants dying for the amusement of crowds. The Romans didn't just stumble into mass entertainment violence. They engineered it with the same calculating precision they applied to military campaigns and architectural projects. Every aspect was carefully designed to maximize both crowd engagement and political benefit. The transformation wasn't accidental. It was inevitable in a society that measured worth through conquest and viewed mercy as weakness. Religious justification provided the perfect cover. Romans convinced themselves that arena deaths served divine purposes, that the gods demanded blood sacrifice on a massive scale. This spiritual framework allowed citizens to witness unthinkable cruelty while maintaining their sense of moral superiority. They weren't just watching people die. They were participating in sacred ceremonies that strengthened the empire and honored the divine order. Modern stadium designers focus on sight lines and crowd flow. Roman amphitheater architects solved a different challenge: how to kill people efficiently while ensuring 50,000 spectators enjoyed optimal views of the suffering. The Colosseum represented the pinnacle of this dark engineering. Beneath its arena floor lay a mechanical nightmare called the hypogeum, a network of chambers, tunnels, and lifting devices that could transport condemned prisoners from underground cells directly into the killing zone through trapdoors. Imagine being locked in darkness, then suddenly thrust upward into blinding sunlight to face starving lions while 50,000 voices roar for your death. Water systems allowed the arena to flood for naval battles where prisoners drowned or were hacked apart while reenacting historical sea conflicts. Drainage systems ensured blood and other fluids flowed away efficiently, maintaining clean fighting surfaces throughout day-long killing festivals. Acoustic engineering amplified the sounds of death, ensuring every spectator heard the final screams. The Romans built permanent infrastructure for temporary murder. Stone posts equipped with iron rings allowed condemned prisoners to be chained in place while wild animals tore them apart. Specialized fixtures held burning victims upright until their bodies crumbled to ash. Underground kitchens prepared exotic animals for both arena combat and post-spectacle feasts, creating an entire economy around orchestrated death. This wasn't primitive brutality. It was industrial-scale killing disguised as entertainment, executed with the same technological sophistication Romans applied to their aqueducts and roads. The amphitheater represented humanity's first mechanized death factory, a prototype for horrors that wouldn't resurface until the 20th century. Romans created the world's first snuff theater by forcing condemned prisoners to reenact mythological stories with one crucial twist: the deaths were real. Imagine being sentenced to play Orpheus, the legendary musician whose songs could charm wild beasts. You'd be given a lyre, dressed in appropriate costume, and placed in an arena with hungry lions. Unlike the mythological hero, your songs wouldn't save you. The crowd would laugh as the beasts ignored your music and tore you apart, the joke being that myth and reality don't align. Women faced particularly degrading mythological executions. Some were secured in wooden frames designed to resemble cows and subjected to assault by bulls, reenacting the story of Pasiphae, who allegedly mated with a bull to produce the Minotaur. Others played Danae, who in myth was visited by Zeus in the form of golden rain, but in the arena faced very different violations before their deaths. The myth of Icarus inspired executions where prisoners were fitted with wax wings and forced to leap from elevated platforms within amphitheaters. As they fell to their deaths or lay broken on the sand, wild animals would finish what gravity had started. The symbolism was deliberate. Humans who aspire beyond their station will be destroyed by both natural law and divine punishment. These weren't random acts of cruelty. They were carefully choreographed productions that required costume designers, set builders, animal trainers, and specialized equipment. Romans invested enormous resources in creating convincing theatrical environments for these death scenarios, complete with appropriate scenery and precisely timed animal releases to match narrative climaxes. The religious implications were staggering. By forcing criminals to die while portraying mythological figures, Romans made their gods complicit in state executions. Sacred stories became justification for judicial torture, transforming cultural heritage into propaganda for imperial power. The message was clear. Roman civilization controlled not just earthly life and death, but divine narrative itself. Roman physicians studied arena deaths with scientific detachment, using condemned prisoners as unwilling subjects in the world's first systematic research into trauma medicine. They documented how different weapons created various wound patterns, recorded typical blood loss rates from specific injuries, and timed how long victims remained conscious during different execution methods. This wasn't accidental learning. Arena doctors deliberately observed the progression of death to advance medical knowledge. They studied how flames affected different body parts during burning executions, noting which organs failed first and recording the typical duration of consciousness during immolation. Beast attack victims provided data on predator behavior and the effectiveness of various protective measures. The irony was profound. Knowledge gained from watching people die violently was later used to save lives. Roman military medicine advanced significantly through arena observation, with battlefield surgeons applying techniques learned from studying condemned criminals' wounds. The same physicians who recorded execution data also treated injured gladiators, creating a perverse cycle where the study of death improved the preservation of life. Archaeological evidence reveals the sophisticated medical infrastructure supporting arena operations. Hospital facilities within amphitheater complexes included surgical suites, recovery wards, and specialized equipment for treating combat injuries. These weren't humanitarian gestures. They were business investments designed to preserve valuable gladiator stock while advancing medical science through human experimentation. When Emperor Trajan celebrated his conquest of Dacia, Romans staged a 123-day festival featuring the deaths of over 10,000 gladiators and condemned prisoners along with 11,000 animals. To put this in perspective, that's roughly equivalent to killing every person in a modern small city for entertainment purposes. These weren't isolated events. Major holidays, military victories, and imperial celebrations routinely featured mass executions disguised as entertainment. provincial governors competed to stage increasingly elaborate killing festivals during imperial visits, using local resources to demonstrate their loyalty and administrative competence. The scale and creativity of execution spectacles became measures of both prosperity and cultural sophistication. The logistics were staggering. Condemned prisoners had to be collected from across the empire, transported to execution sites, housed and fed until their deaths, then processed through killing machinery with assembly line efficiency. Prison administrators developed specialized expertise in managing large-scale human slaughter, creating bureaucracies dedicated to organizing mass death as entertainment. Different execution methods operated simultaneously during these festivals to maintain spectator interest and demonstrate the variety of punishments available. Crucifixions, beast attacks, burning, and gladiatorial combat would occur concurrently in different sections of arenas, creating carnivals of death where audiences could choose their preferred form of violence. Economic data reveals the massive scale of these operations. Gladiator schools employed hundreds of trainers, doctors, and support staff. Animal suppliers developed international networks for importing exotic predators. Weapons manufacturers created specialized equipment for single-use entertainment. Entire regions became economically dependent on supplying the empire's appetite for organized violence. Behind the elaborate architecture and systematic organization were real people whose humanity Romans methodically erased. Gladiators weren't just anonymous combatants. They had names, families, and individual stories that survival records occasionally preserve. Statistical analysis of gladiatorial tombstones reveals that experienced fighters had roughly a 10% chance of dying in any given combat. This meant survival required not just exceptional skill but remarkable luck sustained over years of mortal danger. The average gladiator career lasted 2 to 5 years, with most dying violently before age 30. Even successful fighters who earned freedom bore physical and psychological scars from countless battles. Women participated in arena violence both as gladiators and condemned criminals. Female fighters faced identical mortal dangers while enduring additional sexual exploitation and social stigma. Their participation challenged traditional gender roles while ultimately reinforcing them through violence, as society used their arena deaths to demonstrate the consequences of women transgressing social boundaries. Families suffered alongside arena participants. Gladiators could marry and have children, but these relationships existed under constant threat of violent separation. Wives and children of condemned prisoners faced social ostracism and economic hardship, often becoming enslaved themselves. The ripple effects of arena violence destroyed countless families throughout the empire. Medical evidence from gladiator cemeteries reveals both sophisticated trauma treatment and inevitable violent death. Skeletons show expertly healed broken bones alongside fatal wounds, demonstrating that Roman arena medicine prioritized preserving valuable fighters until their deaths became profitable. The quality of medical care reflected economic rather than humanitarian concerns. Before I dismiss Roman arena culture as ancient barbarism, consider how modern society handles violence as entertainment. Mixed martial arts competitions, boxing matches, and violent films satisfy audience desires for controlled combat within legal frameworks. Professional football causes documented brain damage that shortens players' lives. Yet millions cheer for increasingly brutal hits. The architecture of modern stadiums consciously evokes Roman amphitheaters, creating environments where mass audiences participate emotionally in physical contests between trained athletes. While generally non-lethal, these spectacles preserve essential elements of arena culture: hero worship, crowd dynamics, and vicarious violence consumption. Social media has created new forms of public humiliation and psychological warfare that echo Roman arena dynamics. Online shaming campaigns, viral videos of people's worst moments, and digital pile-ons serve similar functions to ancient spectacles, They reinforce social hierarchies while providing entertainment through others' suffering. Our justice system retains theatrical elements pioneered in Roman arenas. High-profile trials become media spectacles where defendants perform their guilt or innocence before audiences expecting both justice and entertainment. Capital punishment states continue public execution traditions, though with smaller audiences and different methods. The fundamental question remains unchanged. How do civilized societies justify organized violence as acceptable entertainment? Romans convinced themselves that arena deaths served religious and political purposes. What stories do we tell ourselves about our own appetite for watching others suffer? Arena culture didn't end through sudden moral awakening. It collapsed gradually under economic pressure, religious change, and practical considerations that made mass killing too expensive to maintain. Constantine's conversion to Christianity marked a crucial turning point. While not immediately banning gladiatorial games, he prohibited forcing condemned criminals to fight, effectively ending the death penalty component of arena entertainment. This policy change removed much of the lethal character from gladiatorial contests, though modified forms of arena violence persisted for decades. Economic factors proved equally decisive. The enormous costs of staging elaborate spectacles became impossible to sustain as the empire faced military pressures and declining revenues. Cities that once competed to host magnificent games found their resources stretched by defensive needs and shrinking tax bases. Chariot racing gradually displaced gladiatorial combat as preferred mass entertainment. Horse racing was less expensive than human combat and more compatible with Christian sensibilities, while still providing excitement and gambling opportunities. The Hippodrome in Constantinople became the new center of imperial entertainment. Archaeological evidence documents the physical transformation of amphitheaters during the late Empire. Many venues were converted to other uses, with arena floors built over and seating areas repurposed for commercial or residential purposes. The Colosseum itself underwent multiple modifications, including workshops and housing installed within the ancient killing ground. Regional variations in arena decline reveal complex factors influencing this cultural transformation. In North Africa, gladiatorial spectacles persisted longer than elsewhere, possibly reflecting different theological attitudes or stronger attachment to traditional Roman culture. In regions with pre-Roman cultural traditions, arena combat disappeared more rapidly as imperial control weakened. The Roman arena system offers crucial lessons about how civilized societies can gradually normalize systematic cruelty. It wasn't created by monsters, but by ordinary people who made incremental compromises until mass murder became routine entertainment. The progression from private funeral ritual to state-sponsored slaughter demonstrates how quickly social boundaries can shift when violence serves political purposes. Each escalation seemed reasonable compared to what came before, creating a normalization process that made the unthinkable seem inevitable. Religious and ideological justifications provided essential cover for systematic brutality. Romans convinced themselves that arena deaths served divine purposes and strengthened the empire, allowing citizens to witness horrific cruelty while maintaining their moral self-image. Modern societies use different stories but similar psychological mechanisms to justify organized violence. Economic incentives created powerful constituencies supporting arena culture. Entire industries depended on systematic killing, making reform difficult even when moral opposition grew. The parallels to modern military-industrial complexes and prison industries are uncomfortably clear. The Roman example shows that sophisticated civilizations aren't immune to systematic cruelty. Advanced engineering, complex organization, and cultural refinement can all serve brutality as easily as humanitarian purposes. Technology and social organization are morally neutral tools that amplify whatever values guide their use. The shadows cast by Roman amphitheaters extend far beyond antiquity, influencing European attitudes toward violence, justice, and entertainment for over 1,500 years after the last gladiator died. Medieval tournaments directly descended from gladiatorial traditions, though modified by Christian theology and feudal social structures. Knights competing in martial contests recreated essential arena dynamics, while drawing participants from warrior elites rather than slaves and criminals. The same social functions persisted with different class associations. Public executions throughout medieval and early modern Europe retained theatrical elements pioneered in Roman arenas. Scaffolds became stages where condemned criminals played final roles before audiences expecting both justice and entertainment. Execution methods were often chosen for dramatic effect rather than efficiency, preserving the Roman model of transforming punishment into spectacle. Academic study of Roman arena culture has evolved from antiquarian curiosity to serious analysis incorporating psychological and sociological perspectives. Modern scholarship recognizes gladiatorial spectacles as complex social phenomena revealing fundamental aspects of civilization, power structures, and cultural values. Popular culture continues romanticizing arena violence through films and novels that emphasize individual heroism while minimizing systematic killing. These interpretations reveal continued fascination with gladiatorial themes while reflecting contemporary values celebrating resistance to oppressive systems. Roman arena culture forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about human nature and civilized society. The Romans weren't uniquely evil. They were people like us who gradually accepted the unacceptable through incremental compromises and self-serving justifications. The sophisticated organization of systematic cruelty demonstrates that civilization doesn't automatically produce moral progress. Advanced societies can engineer suffering as efficiently as they create beauty, organize mass murder as effectively as they build hospitals, and transform brutality into art as skillfully as they preserve culture. The enthusiastic participation of ordinary citizens in arena spectacles reveals disturbing truths about crowd psychology and moral contagion. Regular people became bloodthirsty spectators not through corruption but through social pressure and normalized exposure to violence. The transformation from civilization to bloodlust required surprisingly little time and effort. Modern neuroscience confirms that humans possess neural circuits for both empathy and aggression, with social context determining which systems dominate behavior. Roman arena culture systematically activated aggressive responses while suppressing empathetic reactions, creating temporary psychopaths from ordinary citizens. The persistence of arena-like entertainment across cultures and centuries suggests that appetite for watching others suffer represents a fundamental aspect of human psychology rather than cultural aberration. Understanding this dark truth becomes crucial for preventing its exploitation by authoritarian systems. The Roman arena system stands as history's most sophisticated machine for transforming human suffering into entertainment. It reveals how quickly civilized societies can normalize systematic cruelty when violence serves political purposes and economic interests. The progression from funeral ritual to mass slaughter happened gradually through incremental compromises that made each escalation seem reasonable. Religious justifications provided moral cover. Economic incentives created powerful supporting constituencies. Social pressure silenced potential critics. Advanced engineering maximized efficiency. The result was industrial-scale killing disguised as entertainment. These lessons remain relevant because human nature hasn't changed since Roman times. We possess the same capacity for both empathy and cruelty, the same susceptibility to social pressure and moral rationalization. The same psychological mechanisms that filled Roman amphitheaters with cheering crowds operate in modern societies facing different but equally challenging moral choices. The Roman example shows that civilization isn't a permanent achievement but a fragile construction requiring constant maintenance. Moral progress can reverse as quickly as it advances. Sophisticated societies can engineer suffering as efficiently as they create beauty. Technology and organization amplify whatever values guide their use. Understanding Roman arena culture doesn't just illuminate ancient history. It provides essential tools for recognizing and resisting similar patterns in our own time. The price of civilization is eternal vigilance against the darker aspects of human nature that Roman amphitheaters revealed with such brutal clarity. The stone ruins scattered across Europe mark more than archaeological sites. They stand as monuments to human cruelty and warnings about the fragility of moral progress. Their lesson transcends historical curiosity. When societies stop questioning their own capacity for evil, they risk repeating history's darkest chapters with new technological capabilities and fresh moral justifications. The Romans built amphitheaters to celebrate their power over life and death. We study their ruins to remember why such power should never again be used for entertainment. In that remembrance lies our best hope for ensuring that the gladiator screams continue echoing as warnings rather than invitations to repeat their suffering. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of history's most tragic and misunderstood stories. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel. I am dedicated to uncovering the hidden, untold stories in history. Ring that notification bell, because the next untold story will move you more than this. Until then, question the narratives, listen to the silenced voices, and never stop seeking the truth behind the legends.